She did a great job. I didn't get one of those. Oh, Martin's here.
Well, good morning. Y'all want to go ahead and take a seat? We're going to have a lot of time for visiting. I hate to interrupt visiting because I know that a lot of you are catching up, and it's great to have so many guests. But just let me give you a rundown of what we're going to do during this Sunday school hour. Well, first of all, we're meeting in here because most of the chairs and tables in our Sunday school rooms are in the fellowship hall for the meal. But then we thought, well, it'd be really great to have a time where we can share memories and just kind of have a casual time together. So that's what we're going to do this morning during this Sunday school hour. I'm going to give you a heads up, okay? Because we're going to sing a song and do a responsive reading here in a moment, just to kick things off. But then we're going to have some time for sharing. So I'm going to let you know what our categories are, so you might think about things that you might want to share. Okay? So we're going to give you the opportunity to share some funny stories. So if you've got a funny story from some experience in the church, then that'll be your time to share. And then we'll have the opportunity to share salvation stories. And so if you came to faith through the ministries of this church, it'd be wonderful to hear about that. And then finally, you have the opportunity to share about maybe someone from this church who's had a lasting impact on your life. And so those are our three categories. Now, if you have something that you want to share that maybe doesn't fit perfectly in one of those categories, I'm sure you can finagle it in some way. But that'll make up the bulk of our time during the Sunday school hour. We'll dismiss a little bit early because we're going to have a 30-minute slideshow playing. And so you'll be able to catch that slideshow, or if you just want to visit with people, we'll have that time between this service and the main service. Okay? Well, if you would grab a hymnal right in front of you, in the pew in front of you. Towards the back, there are some responsive readings. So they're called here connective worship scripture readings. So if you go all the way to page 862, or if you're looking at the numbers of the readings, it's number 31. You see that reading number 31, titled Thankfulness, on page 862. Would you stand with me? We're going to do this reading together. So you'll see that it has the worship leader and then the worshipers. And so, of course, we all together would be the worshipers. But then also there's a reading for men and for women as well. Okay? So let's do that. I'll begin with this on again, page 862, number 31. I will give you thanks in the great assembly. Among throngs of people, I will praise you. I will thank the Lord for his righteousness. I will sing about the name of the Lord, the Most High. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and I am helped. My heart leaps for joy, and I will give thanks to him in song. Women? I will praise God's name in song and exalt him with thanksgiving. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his faithful love and his wonderful works for the human race. Give thanks in everything, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. Give thanks to the God of gods. His love is eternal. Give thanks to the Lord of lords. His love is eternal. And whatever you do, in word or in deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. All be to God for his indescribable gift. Amen. Well, if you would now turn to hymn number 6. We're just going to sing one song together. Hymn number 6. How Great Thou Art.
I see the stars
sings my soul, my Savior God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. All right, you may be seated. All right. So now it's time for some memories, and I'm sure there are lots of memories floating around in your head. And so, if you would like to share them, we would love to hear them. And so, again, we'll start with that first category. Maybe a funny story. Anybody think of a funny story that you would like to share from your memories of your time here at First Baptist? All right, here I'll bring the mic back to you, Martha. And by the way, this isn't just for Martha. This is for everybody. I meant to say, let's try to keep it one or 2 minutes so we can have plenty of time to share.
I've already shared this. The Turners are here with me today and going back over memories. First, before I share a story, this is so exciting. I'm so glad to see everybody that came to visit today and to be with us. I'm not sure the date, but several years ago, when I was in WU with the association, we were having the Bethel WU Ladies Banquet in our old church down in the basement, Fellowship Hall. And I had asked a lady from Fifth Street, Mrs. Croft was her name, from Fifth Street Baptist, was coming to share a mission story. We had finished the banquet and was cleaning the ladies down there. Some of you will remember this. And she needed to come up to the sanctuary to prepare for her presentation for the program, and asked which way to get upstairs. The shortest way was to come up a back stairway, and so she and a couple of ladies took off and came up the back stairway. There was not lights on over in the ladies' Sunday school room back there, and so she made her way up the stairs, took a wrong turn, and took a couple of other steps up a different way, and actually stepped over into the baptistry. So the baptistry, thankfully, was full of water, or she could have broken her neck, but she just took a deep swim. And so Mrs. Croft, Georgie helped me, we got her a choir robe to put on and get dry. Georgie took her clothes home dried and real quickly, and she went on with her program and shared it back up in the evening. That was the funniest thing, not funny then, but that ever happened.
It was too funny.
It was pretty stressful. Somebody else.
How many of you remember that story? Raise your hand if you remember that. All right, yeah, that sounds like that maybe more funny later than it was then. But Georgia says that it was really funny then too. So, all right, any other funny stories? Yeah, not a very funny group. Well, that's okay. I'll give you just a minute. We can go on to the next category if not. Anything funny since we've been here? Since I've been here? Nothing that comes to the top of. Oh, okay. Terry's got one.
Unbeknownst to a lot of people, I used to help the nursery, and I had a fine assistant that was Premier Bonnie Askey, and at that time we had the educational building, and there was a section where you pull two doors shut. We had the toddlers and the babies and cribs, that thing. Well, one day we came in there, and we had the doors open, and I looked around. I saw this black object in an inconspicuous spot in that room, and so I had discreetly told Bonnie to take the children to the one side, and I gradually closed the door. That's when I tried to capture our first bat in that room. Evidently, it came down to the thing, and it's pretty difficult to capture a bat. And so that's my claim to fame for the nursery duties, along with Bonnie.
And your first experience with rabies, right?
I got one.
All right,
I got a
Georgia.
volunteer.
When we were young, it's been so long ago, but I can't remember the whole thing, but we used to have Sunday school parties at each other's house. And we were at the Potter Fields, I think. And Terry, you might not know, but he is honoring. He has done all kinds of things, and he giggles when he does it, because he knows he's being honored. Well, we were having this party, and John Bravis went to change his clothes because he was coming in some costume. He was over in the doctor's parking lot, and Terry thought it would be funny to call the police. Well, they thought they had a druggie there trying to break into the clinic, and it got to be where it wasn't quite so funny. But we had a great time, and what? Anyway, I can't remember the whole thing, but that was so funny.
Very good, very good. All right, here we go.
When I think of funny stories, I normally Carl Weaver was involved. And if you'll notice, there's mints out there in memory of Carl this morning. When we really got back into having sunrise services, all of you remember the old basement, and as Martha alluded to, you get lost down there, get lost coming upstairs, you get lost going outside. But when we got to the point we were trying to do as much with electricity as we could, not use the ovens and other stuff, Carl and I became distinctly aware that our electrical service wasn't very good. And I think by the time we got done with the first one we had somewhere in excess of 300 foot of extension cords running from downstairs, upstairs, through the bins, everything else, and we furnace taped them down, and it looked just like it sounded. It was a mess, but we had a ball doing it. And Carl was the one running around. We called him Two Fingers to make sure that we didn't blow something up. But if there's ever a guy that wanted to have a good time in the name of the Lord, especially, it was Carl Weaver.
All right. We'll do these two more funny stories and we'll move on to our next category, okay?
Speaking of police, Matt and I were married in this church in 1982, and it was a slow day at the police station. So when we took our trip around town in our car that said just married, my brother-in-law rolled through a stop sign. And police showed up behind us with flashing lights, and my bridesmaid in the front seat said, "Oh, they're giving us an escort." And my brother-in-law said, "I don't think so." And so they brought us back to the police station just as people were leaving the church. So everyone leaving the church saw the wedding party at the police station. All the people that were involved had their tuxes on, and they had left their wallets in the church. And someone had handed us the gift of money that people had given us just as we walked out the door. So we paid for the police ticket with our wedding money. But it was a great day. We lasted 36 years, so.
That sounds like a bribe to me. pretty heartless on the wedding day. All right, so one more funny story here.
This has got to be the funniest. Lily and I taught 5th and 6th grade years ago, and we were privileged to have Grant Perrine in our class. Well, he was a hoot. And this one Sunday I asked him, I said, "Grant, who was some of the old-time prophets in the Bible?" And he said, "Huey, Dewey, and Louie." I was hoping he would be here today, but I couldn't go on.
Very good. All right, so now we'll turn to a little bit more serious topic, but a joyful topic, and that is your salvation. I imagine many of you came to faith through the ministries of this church, and so I just wonder if anyone would like to share a story of their salvation. You can tell funny stories. You can tell stories of your salvation, right? Okay.
We moved to Monroe, just down the couple blocks, when I was 5 years old, and had the privilege of having wonderful Sunday school teachers like the one that just spoke. And I was saved in this church, and I was baptized. My dad rededicated his life and was baptized on that very same night. It was Halloween, and we left from here and went to a haunted house right after the baptism. But I hugged Alice Porter in the hallway yesterday and got real emotional thinking about this day and thanking her because the forefathers and the older generations of this church are the reason that I'm still an active member here and lead youth and have such a wonderful relationship with our Lord. It's because of the people of this church, so I am grateful for that.
Did you want to share also?
Sure.
I gave my life to the Lord in actually camp. And there was a camp in Low, you know, that we went to, and of course, well, yeah, that's true, there still is. But we also had a share day here at church after camp, and of course, that's when we talked about it. Of course, I always thought I was saved because I just grew up here, so it was like the actual physical, yeah, exactly, you know, going down the front and registered. And it's just, there's really no, just like Tracy's saying, it's very emotional when you get to come back here and see all the old faces and new faces. And it's, I think Camp Enloe is one of our best things that we support, so.
Thank you for sharing.
Hi, for some of you who don't know me, my wife Cheryl, Brandon Intrican. Nice to see you all today. We got baptized on the same day together, right after each other here, January of last year. And obviously we were saved before that. I'm not going to get into the whole testimony, but God saved us, I believe, at the same day, at the same hour. And it started, our marriage was almost over. And just the things he's done, and he brought us to this town. I mean, I'm originally from LA, Cheryl's originally from Eugene, Oregon, and we're here in Monroe City. So when people ask how I got here, I said the Lord brought us here. Some great encouragement from Pastor Chad and when I was still new here, and always just kind of felt welcome, but you know, still a little nervous because I'm a transplant, but just all these people here have kept us here in the city, and more importantly, kept us close to God, and we're really grateful.
Amen. Thank you.
Well, my testimony is the idea that this church has brought up a lot of great Christians and great disciples for the Lord, and I've been very blessed with a wonderful individual in my life, or actually several. But ones that come to mind is Kenny Carroll and Rama, and another person that a lot of people probably don't realize, Ruthie Critton as well. Ruthie Critton has been a huge part of my salvation, and because of her witness. And Kenny Carroll basically never gave up on me. I was an individual who probably was very ornery, as some people would say, and through the Lord and His work, through the Lord has really brought me closer to the Lord. And one thing that I'll go back to also is the idea of Camp Enloe. We had a night up there of Sunday school, and they was giving testimonies around the campfire. And Ruthie gave her testimony, and when I thought of Ruthie being in this church, I thought, she's a lady of God, and was probably someone that I never thought would have a past that she was willing to share. And And when I looked at that, I thought, if God could save someone like that, he can save me. And that was a huge part to play in my coming to Christ. And I greatly appreciate that. And I appreciate this church and the people who are willing to disciple the Lord, because we all got to remember that someone shared the gospel with us. And we have a huge responsibility as Christians to be outside the doors of this church.
Thank you, Bill.
Nothing's changed. My mom said, stand up. So I'm Amber Rothweiler Neely, and I've been here since I was 1, I don't know, but one of the things that I asked Mom, I said, has anybody mentioned the Bibles from Miss Margaret? And she was our elementary Sunday school teacher I'm looking for. But
I think she is going to be here, I believe.
okay. So she would always gave everyone what we officially called our first Bible with our name on it, and I still have that Bible and some of the things that she had marked in it for me, or different things that we had talked about, or the little notes that she would write for you, and she was always a big part of us becoming closer with Christ during GAs and RAs and all that. And then down, for those that don't know the old building, the old scary basement, we had Sunday school down in the scary part of the basement. And I do remember at one point in time, there used to be a haunted house down there. Yeah, I was going to say, really all you have to do is turn the lights off, and that was all you really needed to do. But it even had some dirt floor in one part that, if you got adventurous and were brave, or a locket. But it all has great memories. And I also got married in this church, and I'm the only one of the 4 of us kids that got married in this church. So I do get that bonus point when I'm in bad with Mom. I just remind her that I got married at our home church. So.
Very good. Oh.
I'm Shannon Rothweiler Bright. I'm Rusty and George's oldest daughter, for those of you that don't know me. And I grew up in this church. I was baptized before we came to this church, but as Tracy said, we lived 2 blocks down the road and down the street, and we came back and forth easily all the time. And it was a wonderful church to grow up in. We had Reverend Stewart, who did wonderful things with us. Sandy Friday was our Sunday school teacher as a high schooler. Phyllis Rice was a wonderful influence musically and was very helpful with me and has always been touched my life. And also Dale and Bonnie Askey. Dale was very involved with the youth group as we were growing up, and their kids were already grown and gone. And I'm on the cusp of my youngest being out the door, and I'm like, I don't know next year if I'm going to be that involved in youth events. And so, as I get older, I so appreciate the influence that others had on us, even as their kids were gone, and how it has touched us, and we go on, even though we're no longer in this church, we've gone on to be involved in great things and help youth and be involved in our churches, and that just goes to show what great influences we had growing up.
Very good. Well, that's a good transition to this final category, people who have had an influence on your life, and that really does go hand in hand with these salvation stories, because all of our salvations are connected with someone sharing the gospel with us, somebody having an influence on us. But I wonder who, and this may be someone who's no longer living, or someone who still is living, someone who's no longer in the church, or someone who's still in the church, but someone who's had a really strong impact on your life, on your spiritual growth, and maybe just a specific way or two in which they've encouraged you in your faith. We'll go back here first, and I'll get to you, Brandon.
Some of you newer people don't know me, but you all know my mother, Miss Jody.
That's right.
You talk about a religious influence. You want to know when I accepted Christ, it was probably the day after I was born. And this church, I literally grew up in this church. And we're going, good grief, I'm talking half a century ago. This is scary for me, because I'm not that old. But when I heard about this sesquicentennial celebration, I figured my mom needs to be here because she's been here for almost half of it. But the other person, there's two people in this church, and I literally grew up in the church. One of them was Miss Alka Roby, who started the tradition of the Bibles with the names on it, I believe, and taught us the Bible. Well, we learned the Ten Commandments, we learned the Beatitudes, we learned the Lord's Prayer, we learned the 23rd Psalms in her Sunday school class. But the other person is, I grew up in the era of J.D. Stewart. And the older people will know what that is. He was my second father. He meant a lot to me. He took me under his wing and taught me many, many things. And I thank God for him. And I especially thank God for my mother. And this church, which has been so much a part of our lives growing up.
Well, we are very happy to have Miss Joey with us. And somebody remind me, how long was Reverend Stewart here? And that was around 20 years. 20, okay. Very good. Okay, Brandon, you want to? Okay. All right.
Well, my dad spoke for me. Miss Jody is my grandmother, and she, in the recent years that I've been here, has shown me what a strong Christian woman is. And her spiritual growth is still continuing today, and that helped me rededicate my life to God. And it's kind of strange because I came from a Methodist background, and coming here is just like a coming home. And I thank my grandmother for that.
Okay.
I'm Sharon Tiemann and my husband Bob, and we were here for 10 years, and I am so thrilled to be able to come today and see faces while we were here active. There's just so many things that went on through those 10 years. They were really good years. Brother J.D. Stewart was pastor at that time. And when you mentioned something funny, I want to combine that with this. He had very good sermons. And the one I remember the most was he was talking about a woman one Sunday, I don't remember who it was, but he said she had such a big mouth that when she smiled, she got lipstick on both ears. I still remember that. I know, I think that's what I remember. It was so funny. And of course, we were involved with teaching Sunday school and so many things, and two of our children, or two younger children, were baptized here. But what I remember the most, and it's ditto to all of these people that have already been mentioned, was the fun that we had with Carl and Martha, and Martha and I took over the youth. And we did everything we could think possible to keep these kids active and in church. And a lot of it was out on their farm, ice skating, sled riding, hay rides, anything you could think of. And it was such a wonderful time with our kids, youth. And they still remember it today and speak of it. I got a note from my daughter, Robin, not too terribly long ago. And in it, she was talking about the wonderful times here at Monroe when we were out at Carl and Martha's. So it's just a blessing. I'm not going to mention people because I'll miss somebody, but I look around and I see so many people here. That was a great influence on my life while I was here in Monroe. And it's beautiful, beautiful memories.
Somebody needs to tell this story of Mr. Stewart's son getting robbed. That was a very funny story.
Doesn't sound very funny. Who knows the story?
Bob, you know it?
No, not really, but anyway, he told the whole thing. They took all his clothes from him. Oh, wow. And yeah, he could tell a funny story.
Wow. Yeah.
Sorry to take up more time, but someone that just is I single out as Terry Critton. I've laughed at him, I cried at him, I've yelled at him, And I'm like a really troubled person to talk to. I had a lot of, well, the main thing, I don't have a family. And so when I first got here, I was trying to get adopted into everyone's family because I just don't have really, my mom doesn't talk to me, and my dad sometimes, and Terry's just always been there to me to share the gospel, to let me cry, to let me yell, and just to not judge me. And the biggest thing is from him, I don't feel like there's any judgment, and that's huge for me because I've always been judged too. Thank you, Terry.
Amen.
I'll tell you, I'm as old as the pews are.
Yeah.
in there. You can sure tell if friends in a hurry. But going back with Reverend Stewart and the effect he had on bringing the young people to salvation, he had a great deal because he spent a lot of time with them. Right that note, he took Joe Rates and Grant, and I think that was all fishing one day. Well, they'd like to drown the whole bunch. They come in muddy. Grant had lost his shoes in the mud that he was in. He stuffed them all in his car, didn't bother him a bit. And one thing I want to tell you on here at the church, because most of you don't know it, I imagine. Well, I can't really tell you who was a participant, but when Roby's lumber yard caught on fire, we had a wedding that's supposed to take.
Daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
You can tell him. You can tell him.
It was also, remember, it was Friday the 13th.
Her picture's in there, so you all might point that out.
You might enjoy what we have here today. Most of you can't remember. Somebody complained about the water being cold in the baptistry. We didn't have a heater. We had a gentleman said, I'll take care of that. He took the coils off of electric stove, hooked them directly up to an electric panel, and dropped them down in the water. Hopefully we can take them out before they baptize somebody.
All right, I'm going to have to cut this short, as wonderful as all of this is. What we're going to do is, we have a 30-minute slideshow that we're going to play between now and the main service. And so you might want to sit and watch that, but you can get up and you can visit and you can, meander around the church. We're going to play the same slideshow after the service. And so, we have the meal and it'll be a long line if we all line up right away. So some of you might want to stay around and watch the slideshow after the service, and then you can go and get your meal, and there'll be plenty of food. But either way, we're going to play the slideshow here in just a minute, and you can do as you please, and then at 10:30, we'll start our main service, okay?